The focus of today is on narrative Compre once again. We will go through a full practice paper. So you guys are Sec 4. Okay, you guys are Sec 4. So in the past 3 years, you have already learned and covered most of the skills that you need to cover and learn so you can complete the narrative Compre paper well and get as many marks as possible. So what I want to do today is I want to go through a full practice paper. Because at this point, start of the year, I want to talk about some strategies that you can use to do better. So the focus of today, editing, then we'll go through the questions for a full practice paper, and then we'll talk about current affairs. If I have time, I'll revisit the questions that I didn't manage to cover last week. You notice that for our lessons, right, we normally have class prerequisites. So for this one, the prerequisites are 65 and 73. So these two lessons will actually, these two practice lessons, 65 and 73, will actually support whatever I'm going to go through today. So those are the things that we're going to cover today. Okay, lesson timing, do join us on time. We try to start at 7:30, it's 7:35 now. So I will definitely have to start and go into the main lesson. Two things to complete before every lesson. If you log into your portal, you will see homework. Okay, you also see the prerequisite lesson video numbers, the numbers for the prerequisite lesson videos that you need to watch. So these are the two things to take note of. Okay. The prerequisite lesson videos, as I mentioned, they are meant to support your learning. So whatever I mentioned here might appear in those videos, might not. So the stuff from the live tutorials and the stuff from the online videos, if you put it together, then you have a very good understanding of what we're going to cover. This is important. Complete the homework worksheet. Please complete the homework worksheet, because that allows me to not only share with you my suggested answers, but also pick up on some good answers that you guys have shared, or I can also pick up on certain mistakes that need to be addressed, and then we can have a good discussion and we can learn together, as I mentioned at the start. So completing the homework worksheet is not an annoyance. It's not meant to be an annoyance. If you have time, go through the worksheet and do it. Because even after the lesson, I'll be looking at your worksheets. If you submit, I can add on more comments after the lesson, and that also will help to add on to your understanding of the topic. Okay? So I think I mentioned this last week, but I just want to remind you guys. Okay, I want a good class discussion. So first thing you do is always to try the questions. Just pop your answers in the chat box. Doesn't matter whether it's right or wrong. Okay? What's important is that you share your ideas. Let's see whether we're on the right track together. Feel free to ask questions. Okay, raise your hand if you have questions, if you need me to clarify stuff. For today onwards, okay, I will be calling upon you. I'll be calling on you to share responses. So please be prepared to share responses when you're called upon. Okay, so last week, a couple of you gave me good answers in the chat box. Let's continue that. Today, if you're here, I'll call on you to share responses especially when I'm talking about narrative Compre. Okay, so let's get started. But I want you guys to give me some information of what you're doing in school. So can you quickly pop into the chat box? What do you learn in school this week, and what's your target grade for English? I will put the questions in the chat box, and you can continue from there. So what do you learn in school this week? Because it's already the middle of January. Time flies. It's the middle of January. So what do you learn in school this week? And two, what's your target grade for English? Yeah, Randall says that they started with oral com. Yeah, oral com is something that's very important. Okay, oral is something that's very important because it's going to be tested. It's going to be the first thing that you're going to be tested, I think, somewhere in term 3, at the start of term 3. It's very important. Caitlin says writing paper 2 and oral prompts. Okay, 2 schools that are talking about oral right at the start of the year. Thank you. Javier, no problem. We didn't really talk about much earlier. We were just doing reminders about the house rules and certain etiquette for the online lesson. So you're here at the right time. We're getting started now. Okay, so Randall and Caitlin have both worked on oral right in January, right at the start of the year. Javier, what do you learn in school this week? You want to type into the chat? Oh, you haven't actually started lessons. Okay. So what have you been doing? Okay. Okay. Yeah, so some schools like to do that at the start, or your filing and your term plan and so on and so forth. Okay, so for us, what we did last week, we started off with narrative Compre, we started off with inferential questions. Then I did go through some of the inferential questions with suggested answers. And then this week we're doing a full paper. Just a bit of preview. Next week we're doing another full paper, another full practice paper for narrative Compre. Week 4, we're going to deal with another question type, which is the language for impact question type. The 3 details questions. So that's just a bit of a preview for what we're going to cover. Okay. Thank you for those who share your responses. Okay, 3 things for today: editing, narrative Compre, and current affairs. So the first thing we'll do is editing. For this one, pop your answers into the chat. Okay, I'll show you the first part. I'll show you the first part of the editing, the first 5 questions, and then you can type in your answers. After a few minutes, I'll show you the second part. Nathan mentioned that he wrote a presentation on things he can do to save the environment. Okay, that's probably to prepare you for both oral and the expository essay stuff. Okay, so save the essay that will be useful in time to come. And you want a B3. Okay, let's work towards that. Okay, thank you, Nathan. Okay, editing for today, it'll be a short text about the abuse of animals. The first and last lines are correct. For 8 of the lines, there's 1 grammatical error in each line. There are 2 more lines with no errors. Standard set of instructions for editing. Just that our task, you will see online, is a bit different. So there's no way you can circle. So you just need to take note of the incorrect word and write the correct word in the space provided. That's if you're doing the online worksheet. Instead of taking the line that has no error, you just put a Y in the space provided. Remember that the correct word you provide must not change the original meaning of the sentence. So I've actually seen mistakes before where students try to change by giving another word and the entire meaning is different. So we want to avoid that. Okay, let me show you the first part of the editing. You can type in your answers. Remember, it's about the abuse of animals. Okay, so the time is 7:42. I'll give you maybe 3 to 4 minutes to read through this first part, key in your answers into the chat, and then I'll move to questions 6 to 10 after that. Okay. If there's anything you want to clarify, you can raise your hand or you can just type your question in the box. Thanks, guys. Okay, thanks everyone. Anyone else wants to pop in your answer? If not, I'll start soon. Nathan, take note that what you've done is actually pointed out 3 lines with errors. You indicated 5, 7, and 10. Remember that for editing, there's only 2 errors. Can? Because it's the same passage. Okay, so let's run through. First page. So I'll just read through for you. Animals are savagely used and subjected to a considerable amount of unnecessary suffering in the name of necessity. Okay, which I think most of you managed to get. Most of you managed to get the idea of. Yeah. Okay, in the name of necessity or under the title of progress and civilization. So what's the clue here? In the name of necessity, you notice the next part, the title of progress and civilization. So that's already the clue. Okay, you can tally name of necessity, title of progress and civilization, because a title is also a name. So that's the first thing to take note of. But does progress have to involve the needless suffering of animals? Do we in the name of technological? So number two, involves will become involved. And this is where you have your subject verb agreement. Advance. Okay, a couple of you thought that you'd had to change advance to advancement. So I went online and I searched up what technological advance means. Let me read it out to you guys. Technological advance refers to the process of developing new and superior technologies that displace older ones, leading to significant improvements in performance. Okay, it's a term that's used in computer science. So actually the term technological advance is correct. What then is the mistake for number three? Animal kingdom. Okay, so have to destroy the animal kingdoms? No, we change it to kingdom because there's only one animal kingdom. There's no doubt that humanity is inflicting massive suffering on animals who are totally at our mercy. Okay, animals, plural, are plural. Okay. Animals and birds are blinded with acids, subjected to repeated shocks, being poisoned, injected with diseases, frozen. Number 5, there's no error. So I think that's what you guys pointed out. Number 5 tick, number 5 nothing wrong, no error, nothing wrong. Okay, good. Number 5 tick for Javier. Okay, thank you. So these are the first 5. Let's go to the next 5 questions. Okay, so the birds are subjected to all these things. They're also starved and amputated. And these are all carried out in the name of human progress. Okay, there are multiple things being done to the animals and birds. So the collective will be to use the word these, THDSE. Every day of the year, millions of animals are slowly blinded, tortured, frozen to be revived. And number 7, no error, so you just put a Y. In school, you'll put a tick. Revive every frozen, starved, or left to die of thirst. So the clue for this, right, would actually be this. If they're blinded, if they're tortured, okay, then this one, you can follow the tense. So you can actually change it to starved. Number 8, the answer is starved. Starved or left to die of thirst, often only after various glands have been entirely or partially destroyed. The victim's reactions are recorded. They are suffering. So here we see the idea of the victims. So it's not going to be his, her, it's not going to be he, she. There are many victims. It's going to be a collective. Their suffering may last for weeks, months, or years before death, though only relief comes to them. Often they are brought back to life and then subjected to other tortures. Okay? So I'll just go back and highlight this because I think I mentioned this just now. So I think for editing, you can always look at the idea of, hey, are there hints in the rest of the sentence or the sentence before and after that? Okay. For example, I mentioned this name of necessity, title of progress and civilization. There's a hint here already. And then here, more than one animal. So we won't be using is, we'll be using are. And another one to take note of. Victims, more than one person. So we use the collective and we make it into their. Okay. Any questions for the editing bit? If not, I'll run into the narrative Compre bit. Okay, as I go along, if you have any questions, let me know. So, narrative Compre. What does it involve? Narrative Compre requires you to answer questions that will be related to a narrative text or a recount.